Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and it's a video I didn't want to make, but we're going to have to anyway, because it seems like everybody online is getting into a bit of a frenzy. Micah Richards is even getting on the act. Roy Keane has now become the favourite to be Celtic's next manager. As Rate and Link would say, let's talk about that.
Do me a favour.
Right then, we've been in this kind of weird situation since the sacking of Neil Lennon, where the situation of who's going to be next Celtic manager hasn't been clarified. We don't really know where we're going. A new rumour's been thrown out every 3 days, and it's just been kind of a guessing game for Celtic fans. We seem to deal with these things very differently from other clubs. The same thing happened when Rodgers left. You know, we didn't make a decision quickly. We gave Lennon a job, we kept that going until the end of the season. Then the definite decision was finally made after speculation of every Tom, Dick and Harry. And the exact same thing has happened now, whereas other teams, when they sack a manager, usually have something in place. Usually something happens, an announcement is made, and whether or not that's something that starts from the end of the season, that tends to happen with other teams, but not for Celtic. We like to go the difficult route. And that situation has been once again kind of brought to light by Dermot Desmond's interview the other day, who said, look, we're basically no further in getting a manager. It's a difficult situation, it's a scenario that we have to go through carefully, which kind of cleared the air, and we're no anywhere closer to getting a manager. You know, there's nothing to be expecting soon. But the Roy Keane talk the last couple of hours, and the last couple of days I should say, has went through the roof, and people are now jumping on the bandwagon that he will be the manager. I'm not too sure what to think. My mind is kind of all over the place with it all. This is something that I've been completely against, and now it's becoming a situation which is looking even more likely as the hours go by. So the situation was obviously brought to light last week when Roy Keane was linked with the job at first. I gave my opinions on the channel alongside a couple of the other boys on the Celtic the Thunder podcast. We sat and spoke about it. We spoke about how it was a bad idea for the club, and we'll probably bring that back up in this video. And then it was brought even further to light in the last couple of days, when it was brought onto Twitter as a kind of more mainstream rumour. But at first it was only coming from like the Kerrydale Street forums. I'm never going in a million years believe something that's just coming from there. That's just nonsense. It was kind of made more prominent and more realistic with the departure of Nicky Butt from Manchester United. He left his role as the head of the youth academy or whatever it is he does down there, and that kind of made it more realistic. You know, there's this talk of having Fergal Harkin as the kind of chief of football, the football operations, the director of football. There was talk of Roy Keane being head coach, and then there was talk of then in the assistant manager role, Nicky Butt, who is now left Man United for a new challenge. So that kind of got the wheels in motion for this rumour to really start and really get going and gather a bit of steam, which was at first for me I'm not going to buy into it. I always say take everything with a pinch of salt. That's what I always say on this channel. I never like to report stuff or say things on here that's going to happen when it might not happen. I talk about things that could happen and the chances of them happening, and now this is kind of picking up a bit more. You know, it fits nicely when you look at it. You do look at it, Fergal Harkin with an Irish companion in Roy Keane, and then Nicky Butt, who's obviously worked and played with Roy Keane in the past. It kind of all fits together nicely, and that's the scary thing. But I still am sitting here on this chair right now thinking to myself, surely to Christ, even though he's the favourite, I think he's the favourite by quite a stretch now, and that would be because of all these things coming out, Nicky Butt helping into that, Micah Richards posting the memes on Twitter saying, oh my god, it's happening from the office. You know, all of that coming together is of course going to make him the favourite, but I'm still sitting here in this chair and thinking, surely fucking not. So Dermot Desmond is in a situation now where Celtic fans are very much on his case. It's been a tough one for us to watch, both by just on the pitch, and then as the club been run in general, it's been very tough for us to watch. He's got a duty now to kind of make up to the fans. He's got a duty to kind of get them back on side and make things a bit better, despite the fact we threw away what was one of the biggest seasons in the club's history. After so many poor decisions over the course of the year, he's got that chance now, and he needs to market that in a way to sell season tickets, and that's by appointing a manager who spells ambition and spells, you know, a bit of positivity for the Celtic fans. And Roy Keane is not that manager. So I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, how in any world can he justify giving Roy Keane the job? The only way that I can see that happening, the only way that I can see it being a possibility, is with Roy Keane being the only option there. Do you remember back when Ronnie Dyer was given the job? Ronnie Dyer was apparently something like 10th choice. No one else wanted the job ahead of him. In fact, Roy Keane was one of the people who turned it back. unless that situation happens again where no one wants this job, how in God's green earth does Roy Keane get the job? And I know they've got that wee pally thing, that wee Celtic man thing between them, and they know each other well. But how? How in any businessman's mind does he go, this is for the best of my interest because season ticket sales will plummet? But then you flip that and you go the other side, you go a complete 180 and it becomes very believable. And this is where it gets kind of scary to be a Celtic fan and think about the possibility of Roy Keane being in charge. This is the same guy who ultimately came to the decision alongside Peter Law to give Neil Lennon the job in the showers in Hampden Park. He's also the man alongside Peter Law who didn't sack Neil Lennon after months of poor results, falling further and further behind Rangers, poor recruitment, whatever else, European exit, European embarrassment. He sat through all of that and didn't sack Lennon. Lennon at the end of the day resigned as well. Apparently he resigned, apparently he walked. So this was somebody who looked quite happy to stay with Lennon until the end of the season. So you look at it on that side, you look at that side of Dermot Desmond and the decision making. You look at all that and you go, well, it's very possible he gives the job to Roy Keane. The club's culture is, there's an utter, it just baffles me. There is a poison at the club with the way we are run. The culture is absolutely shocking. It's stinking. The fact that you can simply get a job at Celtic Football Club, the fact that you can be the top man, the fact you can be the chosen one to take the club forward into what is going to be one of the most important rebuilds in the club's history, or recent history I should say anyway, to go into that, and your only criteria you have to meet is the fact that you're a Celtic man, you've played for the club, you know somebody, you like the club. That's the criteria now. It's not that you have to be an established man or you have to be, it's just that. It's just you have to be a Celtic man. That is disgusting. I feel like the best interests of the football club and the supporters have been completely ignored. And I know there's people who quite fancy the notion of Roy Keane as manager, but come on, as Roy Keane would say, do me a favour. This is a guy who hasn't managed in senior football for almost a decade. I think it might actually be a decade now. And the last time he was in Ipswich. He got chased out of Sunderland. Well, he never got chased out of Sunderland, but he had a falling out at Sunderland with someone for not playing them. Went to Ipswich, had a honker there, and he's been assistant manager to Martin O'Neill from then until being a pundit. How in any way should we be taking someone who's not managed a single game of football in a decade to be our new manager heading into this rebuild? That is absolutely shambolic. It really is questionable at every level. And it just baffles me. I just wonder sometimes where the decision-making process goes with these guys. I know Peter Law was still, for some reason, and that's another thing that baffles me as well. Peter Law was having, apparently, as Dermot Desmond said, a say in what happens here. Why does Law have any say? I understand that he might have an influence, and I understand that he might have a little bit of know-how there after being at the club for so long, and Dermot Desmond at the end of the day will trust his recommendations, he'll trust his thoughts on it all because he's been there for so long and he's overseen a lot of success. But we're bringing in Dominic Mackay to be CEO for a reason. Surely it's his decision now. It's his job to run this now. And they're completely overlooking that by giving Peter Law a say in this decision. Peter Law's not going to be here to oversee what goes on after this decision is made. So why should he have a say in it? Why should he get one last decision to make at the club, which could go on to harm us for years? It doesn't add up to me. It annoys me, to be quite honest. And now we're at a situation where Keane very much could become the manager. And in my eyes, by appointing Roy Keane, you'd have been better off just keeping Lennon in charge. You'd be better off giving John Kennedy the job, because at least they've been managing. At least they've been in and around the game for the last quite a while. And John Kennedy, for example, has probably done more in the past 4 or 5 years at Celtic alone to deserve the job over Roy Keane. That's what I would suggest anyway. And Neil Lennon, what was the point in getting rid of him just to bring in Roy Keane? Look, for all we know, Roy Keane might succeed. I might be saying all of this right now, and then in a year's time, if Roy Keane is the manager, which I'm still going to hold my breath on, because there's nothing there concrete to suggest that it's going to happen. I'm still holding out that, apparently they did ask Jesse Marsh a question. Apparently a phone call was made and Jesse Marsh said, no thank you, I'm going to stay in Austria for the time being. Pardon me, apparently he's got to stay in Austria. The fact that we reached out to him and that question was asked would kind of suggest to me that we are being a bit more ambitious. But you'd be better keeping Lennon there. It's baffling, and maybe in a year's time, as I was going to say, Roy Keane might have us playing good football, we might be winning again, and I was saying fair play to Roy Keane. We needed a bit of a leader, a motivator and all the rest of it, but I just don't see it happening. To me, he doesn't scream head coach, he doesn't scream working with director of football, he screams Roy Keane, the man who wants to run it all. the kind of the voice of, I was going to say the voice of the voiceless, if you like, but he's just that kind of, I'm calling him fucking CM Punk now, but, you know, he doesn't scream that kind, he doesn't fit the mould for me. And it just baffles me. It really does baffle me. But we'll wait and see what happens. He is now the favourite. Just don't let this happen, Celtic. That's all I can say. And this has been a bit more of a rant than usual, but I'm just flabbergasted by the decisions that are continuously made by this board to go so against what is for the best interests of both the Celtic supporters, which includes myself, and just the football club. You know, they're so against it, and it's getting to the point now where we're becoming a laughing stock, and the Rangers fans are loving this, quite rightly, because we'd be laughing if they made an appointment like this. But aye, that'll do it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It's been a fun one. See you next time.